Today is a day of mourning and sadness. Ubisoft has canceled 6 games, including Prince of Persia and the Sands of Time remake. It's a crazy day, a crazy moment that is here with us today. And when we review such a thing as this of that, we need to have introspection and try to contain our frustration. F's in the chat for Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake. I'm gonna go through this announcement, what they just revealed today. We're gonna go through the details of it because there's actually a good number of details for us to sift through. But I do want to be clear. I think in 2 years, we're gonna look back at this and probably be like, that was the right call. That's the vibe I'm getting, okay? Right now, it's very frustrating. But what I see here, at least what seems to be happening, I think, is good for the overall company because it directly responds to one of the frustrations we've had with Ubisoft for like a decade, which is their lack of focus, their like literally just throwing everything at the wall, being masters of none, trying to do everything a little well all at the same time. That's what they're trying to do. It's still shocking and surprising because a lot of us thought that some of these projects were much further along, but I just want to start this out by saying, I think in the long run, this probably is a good choice, okay? Like, it's frustrating as hell, but I think if we look at the big picture, we look at the forest, not just the tree, it's probably a good move long term. And it comes on the heels, of course, of what we talked about on Monday, which is that Marc-Alexis Cotier was booted out and he's now suing Ubisoft for basically forcing him to quit. That's his claim, at least. He's saying that by offering him this other position, which they reference in this report, that they effectively were demoting him and pushing him to be fired, which is why he's suing them for damages and severance and all of that. But this will circle back because what we see here is specifically there's a point where they describe that he was offered the position of head of production. And then later in September, the lawsuit stated this, that he was offered the position to lead a creative house with abstract outlines. We didn't know what this meant. Creative house, what the hell does that mean? That's described here. Okay, we're about to find out what that actually means and what they're doing. So we're about to find out a lot of this stuff and get into the details. But my knee-jerk reaction is that in theory, this is them refocusing and trying to do a couple things really well, as opposed to a bunch of stuff mediocre. Could end up that they're just delaying stuff to shove NFTs in. That's possible. Okay, I'm not going to pretend like it's not. But in theory, they are refocusing. Okay, what is this exactly though? So they have announced that they have delayed 7 other games to ensure enhanced quality benchmarks are fully met. This was part of a larger announcement where they went over a bunch of different stuff that they're doing as a company. They effectively described that they are doing a massive like review of their company processes, and they're trying to figure out what they need to do to not have their stock price plummet constantly. It was funny, we just did that video the other day on the AC Hexe stuff. And what was fascinating was when we looked at the long-term scale, like the article we were talking about was from, I think it was like August or September of 2022, like right here. And then it just proceeds from that moment to just continue plummeting and dropping, or 2021, I think it was. It just continued to plummet. This is the chart of a company that's not doing great. To be clear, this is ADR, or American Depository Receipts. A lot of companies that are European and trade on European stock exchanges, they don't trade in like the New York Stock Exchange. So the only way you can buy shares of them is with an ADR, is what they're called. This particular one is for 1/5 of a normal share. So the actual stock price is 5 times this, but it's kind of, I'm getting into the weeds. The point is the chart will be the same because it's just, you know, a fifth of it. It's just shrunken down, but it's the same proportions. But this is the chart of a company that has been in free fall and that has had rough managerial action there's not a lot of confidence from investors, and this is their attempt to refocus. Okay, so in this same period of time, basically they've been going all over the place. They've been trying to figure out what they want to do, and when they grow desperate, they start to just panic and try a bunch of different stuff. New IP or spin-offs from established IP, things like X Defiant, which is technically a spin-off, or at least started as a spin-off, but kind of turned into its own thing, and then they abandoned it very quickly. That's what they seemingly are stopping. So in this announcement, they announced that they did a review, which led to a decision to, quote, refocus its portfolio, reallocate resources, and comprehensively revise its roadmap over the next 3 years. That is not that long of a time, okay? 3 years for a company like Ubisoft is short term, okay? Because you're talking about projects that can take 4 to 5 years, and you're talking about assignments to studios where you're assigning stuff like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years in advance. So this is a big deal to be like, short term, we're overhauling a ton of stuff. And that's why it was kind of surprising to hear what they've specifically done. Ubisoft said it will focus on, quote, a return to exceptional levels of quality on the open world adventure segment, and to step change the group's position in the games as a service native experiences segment. As a result of this, Ubisoft said it has discontinued 6 games that it felt, quote, do not meet the new enhanced quality as well as more selective portfolio prioritization criteria. Bare bones basic. They say that they're overhauling to focus on quality, which is something we've heard from them since Star Wars Outlaws, where they said, hey, we can't keep shoving stuff out that's like half-baked. We have to actually like be exceptional to compete. And that is a consistent thing that you're going to see as we go through the rest of this, is that they've made it clear competition's not going away. If we want to sink, or if we don't want to sink and we want to swim, we have to actually be competitive when it comes to quality, not just volume, which has historically been what they've tried to do. Because Ubisoft's strategy for like 15 years was, you don't need 5 9 out of 10 games. You only need 20 7 out of 10 games or 6 out of 10 games, you know? And that's what they tried to push. Nowadays, that doesn't really work because it's so competitive. There's so many games out there, people just won't buy your game, you know? So they've reviewed these games that were coming in the very near term, within 3 years, and they have discontinued them because they felt they did not meet new enhanced quality standards. This means that the Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake has been canceled, as well as 4 unannounced titles, including 3 new IPs and a mobile title. The identity of the 6th game has not been clarified, so that's still up in the air. The Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake, I'm not going to show it here because I forgot to pull it up, because I'm a professional. But it leaked recently. There were leaked slides that dropped and showed some of the overhauls. This thing has been kind of a dumpster fire for a while. They did the announcement trailer back in the day, and it just did not look very good. And so after this dropped, people were like, bro, this ain't ready. And so they actually reassigned it. I believe it went to Montreal. Montreal started doing it and overhauling it, and it was looking really good. Some of the leaked stuff that came out actually looked really solid, but they've decided, nope, we're just gonna cancel it, move forward. We're not gonna bother with it. We're not gonna risk it, basically. And again, it kind of follows in line with their expected refocusing, which is, what do we do well? We do open world adventure. That's what people know us for. That's the key of like Assassin's Creed, Far Cry. You could even say to a lesser extent, games like Division fall into like the open world adventure subcategory, or maybe you put the tags on Steam, but like it's still mostly about large open environments, about exploration, adventure, and that sense of exploration and discovery. That's what they want to become the kings of once more, because they used to be that back in the early 2010s. Like seriously, they were coming out swinging with games like Black Flag, even AC3 to a lesser extent. And nowadays it hasn't aged that well, but back in the day, AC3 was like a big deal, you know? And they want to get back to that. And they've said that for a long time. And this is their attempt to refocus on it. And this is what's also particularly interesting. So with all of this, we're hearing this, that they've refocused their portfolio and they're trying to comprehensively revise their roadmap. They want to return to exceptional levels of quality on the open world adventure segment. We're hearing all of this. What was Marc-Alexis Cotier's big thing? When he was in charge of Assassin's Creed, his big thing was to target individual niches with games that focused on them. So his whole thing was like, okay, we are going to make a Assassin's Creed game that targets multiplayer, and then we're going to make one that's like an RPG, and then we're going to make one that's like mobile phones. And then we're gonna make one that is like stealth focused, okay? And so his idea was that he was gonna just make a bunch, again, volume. He was gonna make a bunch of these games, and each one would appeal to a niche, and that would allow them to effectively hit every single one of those niches. The one assumption there that's kind of big is that people will engage with that content on the power of the IP almost exclusively, because this just kind of assumes that the players will come. What I think this is funny because it's kind of like a no duh, but the big realization for Ubisoft over the last year and a half, 2 years, specifically after Star Wars Outlaws, it seems, was that IP alone will not carry the day. You have to have quality as well. Star Wars is like one of the biggest IP in the universe, and it was not enough to carry Star Wars Outlaws. So clearly IP is not the end all be all deciding factor. You have to have quality associated with it. And so just doing AC multiplayer, AC stealth, AC RPG, AC phones, AC story, right? Like with what Hexe appears to be. This might work if you can deliver each of these by modern standards at like that, well, we'll say like A plus level, or maybe this is like a B plus, and then this one is like an A minus, and then this one is like a B minus, and then the mobile game, you know, maybe you can get away with a little worse quality there because it's a mobile game, but you need to really hit high quality standards for all of these. But it's really, really tough to do that because these are all fundamentally different games. And it reminds me vaguely of like the Jim Ryan PlayStation thing, where he just started assigning all these teams that had never done multiplayer games before, and so he's like, yeah, so Naughty Dog, you guys just do a multiplayer game. And they're like, okay, like we've done multiplayer modes, but we've not done a live service game. You want us to do that? And he's like, yes, you guys are one of the best studios in the world, like you win tons of awards. You guys will just make now an award-winning mobile game, or multiplayer game rather. They're like, okay, we'll try. And they spend 4 years, 5 years doing it. And then they're like, actually, this isn't working out. They cancel it, move on. But this seemed like a similar thing where he was going to have Montreal and Quebec and all these other satellite studios like Bordeaux for the stealth game. He was going to have all these other studios working on these various games and just kind of hope and trust that they'd be able to juggle all of this while maintaining high quality or high enough quality standards. But what's happened since the restructuring of Ubisoft when Tencent came in, it seems that Tencent did not like this vision. Tencent thought, you guys have found success specifically with open world adventure gaming. That's like your strong suit. That should be your strong suit. That's where the IP are comfortable. That's what we should be doing. So let's stop trying to do all of this other stuff. Let's stop trying to juggle 15 other IP and stop trying to do all of this stuff where it's just not working. Let's stop that and refocus on what we're actually good at and what our audience is actually expecting. And that seems to be what they are doing. And I think that's why Marc-Alexis Cotier was booted out, because they looked at him and said, we just don't think your vision for the franchise aligns with the new company-wide vision, which is to focus on a couple of key subsects of what we do and become the best at those, or one of the best in the world at those, which I think is a good idea. Like, I think like Mark's strategy, I liked better than the previous strategy, which was to do the AC Valhalla thing, which was to have one game that tries to do all of those. And so you have an RPG mixed with a stealth game, mixed with a sort of live service, constantly evolving and updating game, mixed with this game and that game. And it's just like a bunch of stuff that's all or all mediocre or fine, but it doesn't do anything well. I thought specializing, the odds of those, like one of those or a few of those being better goes up, which I think is true. But I think that the even better approach is like, let Assassin's Creed be Assassin's Creed. Stop trying to make it into 15 other different mini projects and things. So I think that's why he was booted out. Now, what's interesting again is that they offered him reportedly the position to lead a creative house. What does that mean? Well, they describe it in the upcoming section. Okay. So the Prince of Persia, Sands of Time was also canceled. That remake was canceled. That, I would guess, is because they want to free up work at Montreal. The team that was doing this, I believe, was at Montreal. And you know what Montreal's working on right now? Anybody? Anybody in chat? We're on a slight delay, so I have to awkwardly wait here until somebody, like, till the stream catches up, and then you can put it in chat. So this is like me stalling for time briefly. Yeah, Hexe. One person got mad at me in the comment section, like, it's German, Luke, so it's Hexa. They might be trolling me. I don't know. I've called it Hexe. That's what I'm gonna say. Yes, they're working on the next big Assassin's Creed game, Hexe, which is allegedly coming out later this year. That might have just changed, but that's at least been the goal. And by freeing up maybe 100 or 200 extra people that are now no longer working on Prince of Persia, they might be able to just reassign those guys to work on Assassin's Creed and get that across the finish line without having to delay it even further. So that to me is probably what they're expecting, because I think the upside of Hexe doing really well is a lot higher than like the maximum potential for Prince of Persia. Like, this might sell a few 100,000 units or something, but if they can get Hexe out really good by Christmas, I think that makes way more money than this would. So that's their priority, right? Continuing on, Ubisoft also announced it was delaying 7 other games, quote, to ensure enhanced quality benchmarks are fully met. This includes the, quote, unannounced title initially planned for fiscal year 26, which would have ended in March. This has now been delayed to fiscal year 2027. This almost certainly is the Black Flag remake. It's the only game that, like, we have heard rumblings of that was slated for early 2026 that they've now pushed later. And those 7 games that have been delayed, I would almost guarantee you, are games like Hexa, probably the new Far Cry. I'm guessing a lot of the stuff they were doing with like Division has been delayed. I think all of that stuff has been shifted back. So it's possible that now Black Flag Remake is the new, like, sort of September, October game for Ubisoft, and that they push for Hexa to be either next spring or next fall, which also might be fine because they could avoid GTA 6. I mean, that's quite possible too, but that's kind of what I'm looking for. So that's almost certainly what this is. They even say it's believed, it has been believed for some time that the unannounced title in question is the long reported but not yet confirmed remake of Black Flag, especially given that the listing for Black Flag Resynced appeared on Peggy's website last month. So this seems like a relatively recent delay. In a statement posted on the official Prince of Persia account on X, the game's development team explained the decision to cancel. They said, quote, to the Prince of Persia community, we wanted to share this with you directly. And what they said here, the full post, we've made the difficult decision to stop development on Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time remake. We know this is deeply disappointing. The game carries enormous meaning for fans and for the teams who worked on it. While the project had real potential, we weren't able to reach the level of quality you deserve, and continuing would have required more time and investment than we could reasonably commit. And we didn't want to release something that fell short of what The Sands of Time represents. I'll circle back to this in a second. Prince of Persia as a universe and a legacy continues to matter deeply to us, and this decision does not mean we're stepping away from the franchise. Thank you for your passion, patience, and love for Prince of Persia, the Prince of Persia team. I think, again, immediate memes aside, because there's the jokes about them canceling and doing all this. What has been like the message to Ubisoft for the last like year or two, really 5 years, but something I've said constantly. I just said it like a month ago in that video where I responded to the Attack on Titan crossover for AC Shadows. We just talked about this. Let me pull up that clip just so We can reference it. Attack on Titan, AC Shadows. Yeah. Yeah, this madness. This thing. Oh my God, it's so crazy. This, what I said was, if you can do something well, don't do it at all, because it negatively reflects on your whole company. This was framed when people made videos and talked about this, was like, Ubisoft did it again. They somehow lowered the bar even further, right? Even though this was a free crossover event, it was something probably thrown together by a few people in like a week. Like it was not a big deal, you know, on paper, but it reflected really poorly on the company, on the multi-billion-dollar company, right? And it's something I've been struggling to like communicate to them for years. It's just like, guys, when you do the Iron Man armor that leaked, I don't think they ever launched it, but it leaked for AC Valhalla. When you do something like this crossover event, it reflects poorly on the whole company. Why do you think, like, do you really think that like CDPR is not getting approached for crossover events? I'm sure they are. I'm sure CDPR, they've got people coming over and like, hey, it's me, John Dorito. I'm a member of the family of Dorito, and we'd like to sponsor you to have Johnny Silverhand eating bags of Doritos in all of the cutscenes in Phantom Liberty. We'll offer you lots of Dorito money. I'm sure they're tempted, but that would reflect poorly, not just on that scene that it takes place in, but on the entire game and the entire company, right? You can't just do it and expect it to not reflect on everything else, right? And I think that that's a lesson that has been hard to learn, but I think they've, at least it seems, they're starting to get it. If the Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake came out and was just like it just didn't play very well, it was kind of clunky because it's an old game and they didn't like totally rebuild it, I think it would have just been another example. Yeah, the real life John Dorito. Yeah, I think it would have been just another example of Ubisoft doing just enough, and it would further erode their credibility with players. And this is something I've been trying to tell them in videos for a long time. I've even told them this to members of the company to their face. Like nowadays, especially for Ubisoft, people are looking for reasons to be upset and looking for reasons to not buy your game. Like you are starting at a deficit, okay? Some companies, fair or not, some companies start with, you know, some extra credibility. So people go into it with higher expectations. And so they're willing to go along with more stuff. Like, for example, if Hidetaka Miyazaki, the guy from Software, if he came out and said that he is going to do Bloodborne 2, if we draw just like a chart, okay, this is the middle. This is the, we'll say this is the balance of excitement or buying or whatever you want to call it. So the further over to the left you get, the less convinced you are. And when you're over here, you're like a hater and you're not buying it. You hate it, right? But the further over this way you are, you're a fan, you're ordering the collector's edition, you're hyping it up, telling all your friends to buy it, that type of thing. For Hidetaka Miyazaki, Bloodborne 2, you're starting like right here. You know, you're starting here on the scale. And if it's announced, oh, it's going to be multiplayer, okay, maybe that bounces it lower. Oh, it's also going to be a Switch 2 exclusive. Okay, maybe it goes over here. Also, we're going to charge $135 for it. Okay, we're starting to get over here. You know, that's when the balance changes. So you may start here, but you could end up here once you become aware of all of the other information, right? It rebalances based on the information you have. For Ubisoft, and the other component of this that's important to understand is that it is much harder to go this way than it is to go this way. It's very easy for a clip to come out showcasing bad graphics or bad performance and for people to just run over this way. It's very easy. It happens quick, but then it's way harder to recover and push back the other way. So for Ubisoft, they largely start from, I think the average gamer probably here. If you look on Twitter, it's over here, right? But I think they're starting with a lot more pessimism and skepticism, dare I say cynicism, when it comes to their offerings. And it's because of years and years of mixed quality. You know, of underwhelming releases or releases that are like fine, but not great, you know? And that just slowly whittles down the excitement from players and their trust in you as a company to the point where this is where you start. And because it's harder to recover and push back into the excitement phase than it is to fall and be bashed on, you're fighting an uphill battle effectively. And that's what Ubisoft needs and has needed for years to figure out, is how do you get back over here and start at least in the middle where people are like, yeah, we'll see, I'll check it out, instead of people seeing it, well, it's Ubisoft, so it's probably Ubislop, right? Saw somebody on Twitter say that, so now that's my whole thing. You know, how do you do that? I think how you do that is with your actions, with games that are really high quality, like games that people can't really argue with, that are really awesome. You know, there's still people that are trying to like rage bait over like CDPR with Cyberpunk, but when you play Phantom Liberty, it's like, okay, it's pretty good. You know, it's like, yeah, so Cyberpunk in 2020 was like terrible, but Phantom Liberty's pretty good. Pretty awesome. It's kind of hard to argue with, you know, because you can see what they're actually capable of. They actually are like, yeah, you doubt me? Play the game. Like, I'll show you. It's actually amazing. And I think that that's what they have to do. Like, at this point, it's just purely about put up or shut up. Like, it's purely prove it to the audience that you've got the quality chops. And this will trigger some. But I'm going to say it anyway. It counts me. I don't care. It's just my opinion. Ubisoft has done a lot of work in the last year to try and climb that quality mountain and try to convince people and show people that they are actually capable of high quality work, and they've shown that. For example, the Switch 2 ports that they've done for AC Shadows and Star Wars Outlaws are quite impressive. Digital Foundry has talked about it. They've also, for example, shown with AC Shadows in general, that game is very well optimized for how crazy ambitious it is graphically. I personally think it's still like kind of dry and boring, but in terms of technical performance, it's very good. Steam Deck verified and everything, which in the age of our Lord 2026 is rare to have a PC port that's actually optimized. So they're working on it, and part of being fair is to pat them on the head when they do something good and slap them upside the head when they do something bad. We all love slapping them upside the head when they do something bad, but it's important to also give them props when they do something right. Otherwise, you're just being a hateful jerk. You know, otherwise you're being disingenuous and you're not actually concerned with the quality. You're just like trying to hate on it for the sake of hating on it, right? And you'll miss out on good games by doing that, right? If you're still trying to just like be a hater towards like Cyberpunk, you're gonna miss out on one of the best RPGs in recent memory, because as new information's come out, as they've worked on it, polished it up, fixed it up, did the DLC, it's now phenomenal, right? You just have to reevaluate and try to be as fair as you can. Give them a chance, slap them when they do something bad, verbally, of course, and also give them kudos when they do something good. And in this case, I've seen that they are trying seemingly to push for quality. They've delayed a bunch of games already, and then today they've revealed that they're delaying a bunch of other stuff even further, which is encouraging to me. Was it Miyamoto who said, you know, a rushed game is almost never good, but a delayed one can eventually be good? I think that's where we're at with this. It is easy to see this and immediately freak out and just be like, here they go again, canceling stuff that would have been successful. My general rule of thumb is that games that are about to make a lot of money and be amazing don't tend to get delayed or canceled. Usually, because like, what's the one thing executives love more than anything? Money. And if they think they can get money, a lot of money from releasing this, they would have. The fact that they chose to cancel it, to me, would suggest, sometimes there's exceptions. Like I said, maybe with the Hexe thing, they need more manpower over there. That's possible. But to me, it would suggest that they just thought that this maybe would be another one of those instances where it would have been just good enough if that, and they just decided instead of releasing a C- or D+, let's just cancel it and focus on what we can do a B+, A- on, you know? So they've continued on. Let's see. In a media call, Ubisoft Chief Financial Officer Frederic Duget explained the decision to cancel 6 games and delay a further 7. Quote, as part of the finalization of the reorganization, we went through a review of projects across December and January, and with the current market evolution in mind, which is persistently more selective, you've seen the last quarter showing a never seen before level of competition. So competition and selection is here to stay. This I find so revealing. Again, it's kind of like a no duh, but I think for them it's an actual revelation that the crazy levels of competition we are seeing. For Ubisoft, what does that mean? Competition means our game is not the only pig in the show, you know? Our game is not the only one available in October and people are bored, so they'll just buy it to give it a shot. That's how it kind of used to be. It used to be that, what am I going to play this fall? Ubisoft's got something. Let's put that out, you know, because there were only a couple of like real candidate games. Nowadays, if you want to pass on AC Shadows, there's 5 other AAA, dare I say, quadruple A games for you to pick from, right? And that's true of every other brand as well. If you're not feeling Monster Hunter Wilds, you can pop over, play KCD 2. You know, there's tons of AAA options for you out there. And I think they've realized that that's not going anywhere. And it is in fact the case that if they don't compete when it comes to quality, they'll just get trampled over. And this is what's going to become even more clear as Chinese developers start to come over and compete. One of the things we're going to talk about in a little bit is how, where did I put the tweet? Crimson Desert just went gold. Crimson Desert, I think, when it comes to open world adventure gaming, I think they're about to they're about to really show Ubisoft how it's done. You know, I think they really are, because they can put these games out faster. They can put these games out like way more efficiently, cheaper. Development in Eastern markets is way cheaper. They're in Korea, but I think you're going to see it from Chinese developers, Korean developers, Japanese developers. A lot of those companies that used to just do live service stuff, I think they're going to start experimenting with more traditional console releases, and it's going to be tough to compete for some of these big companies. It's going to be really tough, I swear. And I think Ubisoft sees that writing on the wall as well, because they can't, I don't think they can compete in terms of pricing and in terms of speed and efficiency. So they've got to come out and just focus on quality. And that's something they haven't done before or haven't done for a long time, right? So I find this statement very telling. But when you are, he says, continuing on, the CFO says, quote, but when you are coming in number 1, number 2 with great content quality on a given segment, then you can have a very strong reward in terms of player reception and financial performance. So that's what really formed our pipeline review. So their number 1 concerns are having great content quality in a given segment. What segment do they say they're targeting? Open world adventure. That's what they're targeting. And that's what's changed with this review in the last 2 months, which I think helps. What exactly makes game dev in Asia cheaper? Is it peer pressure to work for less? I don't know if peer pressure is the right term. Just the going price is way lower. From Software, I've shown it on stream before. From Software, like one of the most successful and prolific game developers in the industry, they raised their starting pay for new employees from 1,800 USD a month to 2,000 a month. And that was like a big story that they raised it by like 12 or 15%. But that's still only 2,000 US dollars a month to work at one of the biggest and successful game studios in the world. They made Elden Ring and Dark Souls, and they're starting people at 2,000. I think it was 2,085 is roughly what it converted to US. Yes, there's things with like cost of living is different. You can bring up things like, oh, social benefits, government benefits for healthcare and stuff is different. That's all absolutely true. But when we're just talking about the cost of this employee's work versus somebody in Montreal or somebody in San Francisco, it starts to make sense, right? Why it's so much cheaper to do it in Japan or Korea or China. The other just cultural difference as well, in Western developers, crunch culture is seen as like super taboo. Like crunch culture is like super icky. We want to work from home 2 or 3 days out of the week, only come into the office once or twice a week. Do you think they give a crap about work-life balance? in these Chinese development studios? I don't think so. I think they're getting 60, 70, 80 hours a week out of some of these studios, and that's just what it is. And if you don't like it, leave. We've got 1,000 more people who want to work here. So yeah, sure, leave if you don't like it. So, I mean, it's just hard to compete, you know, when that's what you're dealing with. And a lot of those developers are amazingly talented in China, Korea, Japan. They're amazingly talented, and they'll work way longer hours for less money. And that's when it's just really tough to compete, right? Let's see. So I think that this is an important aspect to just bear in mind. The thing they keep reiterating is, and they are showing it through their actions, they are delaying, canceling, and reorganizing based on pursuing quality in one specific market segment, which is open world adventure. That to me sounds like Far Cry and Assassin's Creed. So they are doubling and tripling down on trying to get quality first and foremost. That's their goal. Bubbles, thank you.
At Bubbleslew donated £9.99 through Super Chat.
Thank you.
These games have been in development for years. Trends change very quickly, and it might be behind or late in the trend, so they see it might be better for them to cancel it during development.
Yeah, well,
loudly crying.
Yeah, loudly crying. Emote. I do think that there is an aspect of this where a lot of the stuff that they seem to be canceling right now and delaying and restructuring is specifically stuff that Mark greenlit in the Assassin's Creed division, and other games in other IP like Tom Clancy that were greenlit in this same era of like 2021, 2022, in that period when Ubisoft stock started to really start to tank. And I think it's just because they see pretty clearly, for one, and this is the thing about like being a publicly traded company, at the end of the day, the investors think what the investors think. They have voted with their wallets 1,000 times over the last 5 years that they do not like the direction that Ubisoft is going. So if it doesn't, again, it's another one of those no duh kind of revelations. But if you are headed down one path, let's say you reach a fork in the road, okay? And one fork you choose to go down. You start walking down, but it just steadily drops further and further towards a lava pit of actual doom and despair. And you keep looking back, and you're looking back at the other path that you could have taken, and you see that it goes up and up, and you can like smell flowers, and you could have sworn there's a bakery up there. There might even be a crepe shop. It smells wonderful, but down here is lava, and you're gonna die if you keep walking. It does take a genius to think, maybe I should go back and take that other path. Maybe I should do the opposite of what I'm doing now. That seems to be the revelation they've had. Okay. That what we're doing is causing us to slowly descend into the depths of hell financially. So maybe we should try the opposite. Stop pushing for volume and quantity and start pushing instead for quality first and foremost. I think transparently, this also means that there's going to be major restructurings and layoffs, because Ubisoft, they don't have 20,000 employees anymore, but they still have well over 15,000. I think it's over 17,000. I think. I don't think we know currently the exact number, but they have a lot of employees for only having a handful of financially viable IP and projects. So I think it's quite likely that they're going to restructure further and continue to double down and focus on this. But remember I mentioned the creative houses thing that they offered to Marc-Alexis Cotier that we didn't know about before? Well, he's about to get to that. So, quote, this is the CFO talking still. We enhanced the quality criteria to select what we think should be the best projects to put the creative houses in the best conditions to succeed in that market, with the idea that we must refocus our resources on the strongest potential games for the long term. Effectively, why are we spending all this time and money on stuff that's probably going to flop when we have a few games that we think are going to hit it out of the park? We should, instead of having like, how can I depict this? Instead of having like, instead of having a bunch of games that maybe are like 2 out of 10, this one's like a 5 out of 10, this one's like a 5 out of 10, this is like a 4 out of 10. And then occasionally you get like a 7 out of 10. And then maybe occasionally, if you're really lucky, you get an 8 out of 10, right? Instead of doing that, they want to refocus and instead get rid of all those 2s and 3s and 4s and 5s, and have a few that are like 9 out of 10s, and maybe an 8.5 out of 10, and then a 9.5 out of 10. That's what they're doing. And you might think, how does that work? How can you fund a company based on that? Allow me to point to a couple of big examples that are finding much more success right now. CDPR, even like a Rockstar is a great example of a company that's able to do this. Dare I say a Bethesda Game Studios. Like, these are companies that release fewer games than Ubisoft. They might even release only one every few years, like with CDPR or Rockstar. But they are valued in the billions as companies because they have one game that pops off. It's so good that people continue playing it for years and years on end. They buy it multiple times because they just want to support it because it's so good, and because they want to play it on the go, on the Steam Deck or on the Switch or whatever. And so they constantly go back to it time and time again. Now, in the case of BGS, they also built in like in-game stores and microtransactions and stuff, which those other companies haven't done. At least, well, Rockstar has with GTA Online, but with something like Red Dead 2, I think they're up to like 70 million copies. 70 million copies sold of that game. It's like between 60 and 70. It's insane, dude. It's insane the amount of money that one game has brought in because it's so good. And so, yeah, you can put out, at least historically, you could put out 3 out of 10, you know, a D minus, a C plus, a D plus, maybe a B minus. You know, you put out these games of varying qualities and they'll sell and you'll be fine. But what Ubisoft's seen in the last few years is that people are so picky, and the industry is so competitive that you can't do that anymore. People just literally won't buy the 6 out of 10. They used to buy it, but just not as much as the 10 out of 10. But now they just don't buy it. And so they have to change and they have to readjust. And that seems to be what they're doing. Double down on the stuff that they think can pop off, and don't bother with the stuff that they think is like, right? He continues, CFO speaking again. So, quote, that's really the criteria, the approach that we followed to either stop some games, and in there are 3 new IPs that we stopped in the context where, yes, it's more difficult in this market to create new IPs than before, or to give additional time for projects that we think have great potential, but we need to make sure they come with exceptional quality. Again, doubling down on that point that it's all about quality now. Quote, so that's really the approach and the mindset that we've been following. Coming back to new IPs, we still have 4 new IPs in development, including March of Giants, which we just acquired. So we still believe that there are 4 innovative new IPs that we can bring to market with a great level of success. Quote, or going on, when it was announced in September of 2020, Prince of Persia: Sands of Time Remake had been in development for 2.5 years at Indian studios Ubisoft Pune maybe and Ubisoft Mumbai, and it was planned for release in January of 2021, but the reaction was so negative that they basically went Control Z, never mind, and walked it back. Thank you, Gakachi, for the sub with Prime. Can I get 3 booms? Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, see, you got 4. You got 4. You're welcome. So they continue on. The remake was then given a 2026 release window, with Ubisoft stating in 2024 that its Toronto studio, Far Cry 5 and Watch Dogs Legion, had come on board to collaborate with Ubisoft Montreal on the project. Last year, it clarified it was set to release by the end of the current financial year, meaning before today's announcement, players were expecting it to release sometime before March of 2026. Again, this makes me think that it really was slated for release in March or February, or it was rumored that it could even potentially be coming on the 16th of January. There were leaks suggesting that it was going to drop on that day, and it just never happened. What I really think happened, this is I don't have any insider knowledge, okay? I didn't talk to anybody behind the scenes. This is just my guess, okay? I think what happened is that Prince of Persia: Sands of Time Remake was probably supposed to release on January 16th. I think it probably was supposed to release this month. I think also the Black Flag Remake was supposed to release probably next month or March. I mean, probably next month if we're being honest, but I think that sometime in the next handful of weeks. And then they did this internal review. They found that there's going to be stuff where you can poke holes in it. and they decided just delay it, give it time. And
At
for Prince of
Overico
Persia, just cancel it
6097
because
donated
there's no
$10 through Super
storyline where
Chat.
this is like good for us.
Where's Beyond Good and Evil 2?
Who freaking knows, dude? I wouldn't be surprised if that's one we find out was like canceled and just moved on. Fun fact about that, I believe it was the chief technical officer at Sandfall Interactive. It's one of the like OGs behind Clair Obscur Expedition 33. He worked at Ubisoft. Was it Montpellier, which is the studio that did a bunch of work on Beyond Good and Evil 2. So he actually worked on that for a while before going over and working on Expedition 33. Small world, right? Small world. Jade canceled. They said that they canceled a mobile game. For them to announce that they canceled Jade, I don't think would make sense because that's being developed by Tencent. It's possible that they could also announce that they delayed that as part of this announcement. Jade might be canceled for all we know, but that is being developed by somebody else. So I'm not sure if it would fit in the context of this discussion when they are talking about games they are developing and they are canceling, but it's possible. Could be the Division mobile game. It could be, or let's be completely honest, it could be some like random crap that you've never heard of that would have flopped. And it's like, it was going to be a Just Dance phone game where you hold your phone and dance and you earn points. Like something stupid like that. You just never know. You never know. So I think that, yes, the memes write themselves. The jokes write themselves. Ubisoft canceling something that, they had previously announced that was supposed to launch any minute now. But what seems clear to me, like they are saying the right things. They are saying that they are refocusing on what players want, which is open world adventure games from Ubisoft. That's what they historically have been good at. It's been a while since they released a really, really good one, but that's historically what they've been good at. So they're not saying we're refocusing on RPGs. They're not saying we're refocusing on free to play live service. They're saying open world adventure gaming. That's our focus. And that's what a lot of AC fans and Far Cry fans have wanted to hear. They also are showing and like delaying stuff to give it more time in the oven, which I think is always a good thing, especially with how often games are rushed nowadays. So I think that's good. And then they also are canceling certain projects which they don't think meet quality standards, seemingly to free up people to then go and work on other things that they think have higher potential, that they can get up to higher quality standards. Again, all of this stuff on paper is pointing in the right direction and sounds good. But at the end of the day, it comes down to actions. It comes down to like the actual quality of the product. Because all of this is just talk and bluster. We've heard every company on earth say, we're focused on quality. And then they release some garbage, right? So like it's important for them to actually deliver on it. But seeing and hearing that they are delaying, giving teams time, they are restructuring things is, I think, a good sign, a good thing. As for the creative houses that they are doing, this is something that they shared. They said that they are revealing, this is their broader structure, okay? So they have Vantage Studios, Creative House 2, 3, 4, and 5. As for, again, I keep going back to this because I keep thinking they're about to reveal it and talk about it, but going back to this again, they offered Mark a position as lead of a creative house. What are these creative houses? It's this. So they have Vantage Studios. This is the one that's previously been announced and revealed that owns and runs Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and Rainbow. Okay. This is the one Tencent owns 25% of. Okay. They then have Creative House 2, 3, 4, and 5. They also label it as being part of a creative network of studios partnering with all creative houses to provide best-in-class production capacity, provide shared, standardized, scalable services that enable the brands and project teams to focus on their core missions. So things like tech and infrastructure, the engine work, and stuff like that. But each of the creative houses are largely independent, which this is something Ubisoft has tried to do over the last probably 7 to 8 years, is they've tried to build this like global network of studios that can all kind of work together on stuff. That was done because they thought and expected that it would increase their capacity and like production output. It seems to have not done that. And I think it's probably because it clogged stuff up. because it's tough to be waiting to hear back from this studio across the ocean when they get to work in 7 hours. So you got to wait to hear what they say before you do this thing. So it just can kind of clog stuff up. So instead, what they're doing is they're going with the creative houses that have more independence. They say that Creative House number 2 will be dedicated to, quote, competitive and cooperative shooter experiences, including The Division, Ghost Recon, and Splinter Cell. Creative House number 3, which will operate a roster of select sharp live services such as For Honor, The Crew, Riders Republic, Brawlhalla, and Skull and Bones. Creative House 4, which will focus on fantasy worlds and narrative driven experiences and universes like Anno, Might and Magic, Rayman, Prince of Persia, and Beyond Good and Evil. And Creative House number 5, which Ubisoft says is aimed at, quote, reclaiming our position in casual and family-friendly games in brands like Just Dance, Uno, and Hasbro. But this allows them to build out the studios specifically for what they are specialized within. And this also is a pretty massive shift in approach, because historically, like, I've been to some of Ubisoft's big studios. Like I've been to the Quebec office last year for AC Shadows. That is a massive building with hundreds and hundreds of employees. Montreal has like something crazy, like 2,000 or 3,000 people working in it. It's massive. They have people from Just Dance, people from For Honor, people from Assassin's Creed, people from, like, they have people from all these different projects in the one building, in the one space. And it sounds to me like they are trying to refocus. So like Montreal becomes the Assassin's Creed and Far Cry hub, and Rainbow, I think, is also made there. So that's what they do there in one building. Like, I think that actually what's fascinating is in the wake of COVID, a lot of companies started trying to go global. They started trying to go with like work from home, do everything through Zoom calls. And I think we've seen like production output from a lot of companies drop down and like plummet. And I think that a lot of these companies are trying to refocus on like working in the studio and in person more. It's what Rockstar's been doing. It's how they've also combated like leaks and things, because when you're in the office, they can have a tighter control on it. But I think that might be part of what they're trying to do here. Yeah, they recently acquired MOBA March of Giants, which is will be assigned to a creative house at a later stage. Each of the creative houses will have its own leadership and end-to-end responsibility for its portfolio, from development to publishing and financial accountability, which Ubisoft hopes will make it better, faster decisions and lead to more hit games. The creative houses will be supported by a creative network team, which will share studio expertise and provide co-development support, as well as core services group, which will focus on technology, QA, localization, business planning, and more. Specific development studios will be assigned to each creative house, Ubisoft said, while some will be assigned to the creative network team and work with multiple houses. As part of the changes, staff will be expected to return to the office 5 days a week. What did I tell you? With an allowance for some work from home days. This is actually something I've seen when I've done a lot of these studio tours in the last like 12 months. A lot of them, they have like Tuesdays and Thursdays. Everyone except like the business managers are working from home. So they have like press events on those days because nobody's in the office. And so you don't have to worry about like cover up your monitors so they can't see what you're working on, you know, but like they just are not in the office. But now they are pushing, no, you're going to be in the office. You're going to work in the office 5 days a week. We'll do some work from home if you got like kids and stuff, but you're going to work in the office. Eve said, on the one hand, the AAA industry has become persistently more selective and competitive, with rising development costs and greater challenges in creating brands. On the other hand, exceptional AAA games, when successful, have more financial potential than ever. In this context, today we're announcing a major reset built to create the conditions for a return to sustainable growth over time. Quote, we are transforming Ubisoft's operating model to produce exceptional quality games on the two core pillars of our strategy: open world adventure games and games as a service native experiences. At the center of this transformation are our creative houses, integrated business units now combining production and publishing, and therefore unifying the gamer relationship. Each one is built around a clear genre and brand focus, with full responsibility and financial ownership, led by dedicated leadership teams. It is a radical move, relying on a more decentralized creative organization with faster decision-making and best-in-class cross-functional core services supporting and serving each creative house. To put the creative houses in the best conditions to succeed, we decided to refocus our portfolio with meaningfully revised 3-year roadmap and accelerate our cost reduction initiatives to right-size the organization. We will discontinue several projects currently in development and provide additional time to certain games to ensure enhanced quality and maximize long-term revenue or value. We will also selectively close several studios and continue restructurings throughout the group. While these decisions are difficult, they are necessary for us to build a more focused, efficient, and sustainable organization over the long term. Taken together, these measures mark a decisive turning point for Ubisoft and reflect our determination to confront challenges head on to reshape the group for the long term. The portfolio refocus will have significant impact on the group's short-term financial trajectory, particularly in fiscal years 2026 and 27, but this result will strengthen the group and enable it to renew with sustainable growth and robust cash generation. Ubisoft is entering a new phase, one designed to reclaim creative leadership and build value for players and stakeholders over the long term. It's so interesting. This description of taking and decentralizing decision-making for individual development houses, that sounds to me shockingly similar to what CDPR has been doing with their studios. As you know, they just opened CD Projekt Red Boston, and they're like building that out, and it's the North American team that's going to be largely independent that is working on Cyberpunk's sequel. And that is part of their goal, is to have like that team, that's what they do. They don't have to wait for the people in Poland to tell them what to do. Like, they are working on that. They have some autonomy and they can be dynamic with it. And it's how they kind of respond to the growing organization, which has grown to thousands and thousands of people, is to shrink down the team and give them autonomy and independence so that they can do what they need to do. Can work out great if they know what they're doing. If your independent team that's smaller and more dynamic ends up taking it in the wrong direction, they can get pretty deep down the wrong direction much faster. So it's important who you put in charge. But again, this sounds to me like a pretty as they said, radical overhaul. But you know what they say, when a company, or really anybody, is viciously sick, is terribly ill, sometimes or violently ill, you need a violent doctor. And that seems to be what they are trying to do here. So I think that this is going to be very, very interesting to see. Now, the ADRs for Ubisoft, of course, are trading as you'd kind of expect. Not great, because they're saying that that last sentence there, this one, particularly in fiscal years 26 and 27, it'll significantly impact our short-term trajectory over the next 2 financial years. Translation: our numbers will not be great this year and next year. Just be ready for that. And so you'd expect the stock to get hit pretty hard, and it's been hit pretty hard. This is the ADR. I want the actual Ubisoft stock France. I want the actual like French one. Yeah, see, this is interesting. So the ADRs are plummeting, but I think the market close is affecting this, because right now it's after market close. So we'll see. We'll check on it like in a day or two, see what that's looking like. But because like the ADRs are traded, they're anchored to the real stock, but if you look like, you know, at the ADR, they're trading, because the market's open right now on the ADRs versus the market for the actual stock in France, where the market's currently closed. So we'll see how this stock balances out, the real stock, not the ADRs, like tomorrow and the day after. We'll see where it balances out to, but it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. So I think that they are going to, it's a good thing they have Tencent to bankroll things. Let's be real, because it sounds like they're delaying a lot of stuff, canceling a lot of stuff that was probably going to give them cash. And they're doing it because they hope in a year or two, they can just start to really rebound and win back confidence. But in the short term, it means that a lot of these games we thought were coming soon are probably not coming soon or at all. So the Prince of Persia game is canceled. We're not going to see that. The Black Flag remake has been delayed till later this year. I doubt that it's going to end up coming out next year. I think it's probably now their fall game, and it makes me think that they might have pushed Hexe to be the spring release, or even to next fall, which would be crazy if they gave it like an extra year of work. But it makes me think that everything's being shifted forward, which I think that's better than rushing it, frankly. Like, I get it. I think that's fine. I think it's probably good in the long term, but it's frustrating. I do think in a year or two, though, we will start to see the benefits of the big delays and giving studios a lot more time, and then also taking Paris and like the corpo team out of decision making. That to me, I think is going to really help, because that seems to be what upset Mark so much, was that he had this overarching control over a bunch of this stuff, and then that was taken away, and so he wanted out. But when they said that he was going to be offered or like control of one of the creative houses, it makes me think that they were offering him creative control of a creative house other than Vantage. So they were offering him creative control of like maybe this one, like Anno, Might and Magic, Rayman, Prince of Persia, Beyond Good and Evil 2. Like they were taking him off of Assassin's Creed, is what it sounds like to me. And that's what made him quit, because he was like, no, that's all I really want to do. So they're trying a lot, they're overhauling a lot. We'll see how it works. It's probably still like a year or two before you see the effects of this. It's still possible that they're just delaying stuff to fill it with more NFTs and stuff. That's possible. Never doubt their abilities, but you know, I think there's potential with these announcements that they actually are finally listening to some of the major criticisms, which is that if they go for volume and quantity over quality, they shouldn't be surprised when people are not that interested in the games, because they're kind of bleh. You know, if you want players nowadays, you just got to put out the best game in the market for the month. Like that, it really is that simple. It's not necessarily just about IP. It's not whether you have the Star Wars license or the Assassin's Creed license. You just have to put out a good game that people like and talk up. That's the big thing. What's up with Ubisoft? Years and years of mismanagement that they are now trying to untangle. And we'll see if they can... see if they can do that. I bet the devs are stoked on this while the market is sad. Yes and no. I think the devs are stoked to have more independence, because now this restructuring means they don't have to listen to Paris. They don't have to listen to the corporate team as much. So if you're working in Montreal on Assassin's Creed, you now don't have to wait to hear what Paris thinks when they do a review of it every few weeks. You can just make the game you want to make. So I think they're excited about that. The downside is that now they're going back into the office 5 days a week, which I'm sure they're not too thrilled. I too do not listen to Paris. It's generally healthy that way. That's just generally a good idea, frankly. He took my